Welcome back to another FPL video. Today we're talking about the Game Week 5 team selection. I'll be recapping on how I did in Game Week 4, my transfer plans for the upcoming deadline, which is going to be on a Saturday, so be sure to tune in for that. And there's going to be plenty of UCL fantasy content within the next few days, a latest draft video, team selection, and the Champions League fantasy deadline stream on Tuesday. And our aim is to reach 20,000 subscribers by Tuesday's deadline stream for UCL fantasy, and it'd be a great pleasure to have you on board. And also a huge shout out goes to all the channel members and patrons who have supported the channel tremendously. There are new badges and emojis to use for channel members starting from the basic tier, and your channel will be featured on the front page of my YouTube channel if you become a member. So thank you very much for all your support, but let's get straight into this, starting with a recap of Game Week 4. I have some huge concerns with my goalkeeper. That's back-to-back 0-pointers for Onana with bookings in consecutive games, one for time wasting against Arsenal and maybe a bit unlucky to get one against Nottingham Forest. But Onana has been a terrible asset in the last 2 game weeks. Man United keep on conceding chances, and even in Game Week 1 when he got a 9-pointer, he was very lucky to get away with a clean sheet. He probably should have conceded a penalty towards the end of that game, and the expected goals conceded against Wolves was already nearly 3. So things aren't looking good for Man United. They also have injuries at the back to the likes of Lindelof potentially, Luke Shaw and Varane. Lisandro Martinez appears to be fine, which is a big boost for Manchester United, but they face Brighton and Hove Albion next. I definitely wouldn't expect a clean sheet in Game Week 5, but the fixtures turn soon afterwards, and I'm looking at the alternative goalkeepers. I like the look of Alisson, Vicario, Leno and Flecken, but I don't think there's a clear standout at this moment in time, so I'm quite happy to keep Onana for the time being and reevaluate the situation in a few weeks' time. But he is close to being on the chopping block, I have to admit that, and I went from having a triple up in Man United and I'm close to having only one, and I think that's enough for the moment. Quite frankly, the defensive performance, stemming all the way back to the goalkeeper, has been horrendous this week. Rico Henry got a 1-pointer, conceding twice to Bournemouth, and at one point it looked like Bournemouth would have lost the game, so that was very disappointing. I actually thought Bournemouth could come up with a result, a draw, something like that, but I didn't expect them to score twice at Brentford, so that was a huge disappointment for Rico Henry owners, and he hasn't been good enough since I bought him in. He got that assist against Spurs, put in a man-of-the-match performance, but things haven't really clicked for him FPL wise. I still think he offers good assist threat and he is a good left back, but Brentford need to keep more clean sheets and Rico Henry needs to get some more attacking returns to really make him a step above the rest in terms of those 4.5 million defenders. Then we go to the rest of the defence, and Ben Chilwell is another one who conceded and got a yellow card against Nottingham Forest, and I actually said this heading into the Game Week 4 deadline stream. I thought Chelsea would concede, but with Chilwell's attacking potential, I was quite happy to have him there. He played on the left wing yet again, and that probably won't be a long-term solution for Pochettino, but it's what's happening at the moment. I don't think he has enough confidence in Mudryk, who now appears to have picked up an injury against England. But Ben Chilwell is still a good FPL asset, but at that price point, you probably would be tempted to switch to Trippier once the fixtures turn for Newcastle around Game Week 6. So Ben Chilwell hasn't been good enough for his price tag, but still, he has gotten 2 returns in 4 games. It's not too bad, but I would be expecting a little bit more from the English fullback. And the last defender is Pervis Stupinian, who conceded in the dying embers of the game against Newcastle. And to be fair, on the balance of play, I think Newcastle deserved a goal, but Brighton, with a far better team, deserved their victory. But Stupinian owners, once again, a bit frustrated. The good thing about it is that most people have a Stupinian, so it's not really a big gain if he kept a clean sheet or not. But overall, you look at this defensive line, and it was absolutely awful. Things were much better in the midfield. Mbeumo got an 8-pointer with that great bit of control, skill and the finish to match the quality to equalise against Bournemouth. So I'm very happy with Mbeumo. I bought him in as part of a -4 hit, and he was one of the shining lights of an otherwise disappointing game week. And Bukayo Saka, I think, exemplified things because he got 4 points in the end with that assist for Declan Rice, that late winner against Man United, but he got a yellow card. He also missed a sitter right at Onana. He should have done much better with that finish, and I don't think he's had a great start to the season. But having said that, he's still gotten a decent number of FPL points, a 10 points against Nottingham Forest, also an 8 points against Fulham, and the goal contributions haven't been too bad, but I think his overall performances leave a lot to be desired, and there's much more to come from Bukayo Saka. And as for the rest of the midfield, Raheem Sterling was also another transfer I made, and this was the big decision for me this week. Do I sell Rashford to Raheem Sterling as part of a -4 hit? and I was really, debating this decision, and so far it hasn't turned out in the way I wanted. But Rashford has a great record against Arsenal in recent times. He scored in both games last season, and he's done it yet again at the Emirates. He capitalised on some big errors from Arsenal. And as for Raheem Sterling, he was a bit unlucky. He should have gotten an assist for Nicholas Jackson, and he probably should have scored himself, but I think he still has a good chance of returning over the next 4 game weeks. So if you brought him in game week 4, just like myself, give him a bit of time to prove himself, but he's going to be very inconsistent and he will cause a lot of frustration. And Chelsea have some very good underlying numbers in terms of XGC and expected goals, but they need to get their finishing boots on, and that includes Raheem Sterling and Nicholas Jackson. To complete the midfield, I had Bruno Fernandes, and I actually thought Rashford would do better than Bruno Fernandes against Arsenal, but I think Bruno Fernandes is a better option in the long term. His underlying numbers are still fantastic. Even in games where he's a bit quiet, like he was against Arsenal, he creates chances and makes those really incisive passes to cause problems to the opposition defence. And speaking of which, my final transfer for Game Week 4 was James Maddison as part of a -4 hit, and he was another one who delivered. So essentially, I sold Rashford, Martinelli, Mitoma for Maddison, Mbeumo and Sterling, and overall it hasn't really worked out. Maddison and Mbeumo in for Martinelli and Mitoma. I gained a few points from each transfer, but Rashford to Sterling for a -4 hit was a big downfall, and it actually cost me 9 points in the end. But apart from that, very happy with my midfield, and I'm expecting much more in the upcoming game weeks. I was very disappointed in my forward line this week, despite Erling Haaland scoring a hat-trick and getting a 20-pointer, because he's owned by pretty much everyone in the game, and some people even triple captain him, so fair play if you went through with it. I tend to aim to triple captain in a double game week, but sometimes you have these plum fixtures at home, and Fulham's expected goals conceded numbers have been absolutely awful, and I've been saying it. I think Fulham have been very lucky this season to win against Everton and get the draw against Arsenal, and they've been conceding so many chances, and it's down to Leno essentially to save them, and he couldn't on this occasion as Haaland scored a hat-trick in a 5-1 victory for Man City, who weren't particularly good, but I think the absence of Joao Paulinho was a huge boost for those Erling Haaland triple captainers. And the final forward in my team was Ollie Watkins, who blanked, and it is Liverpool at Anfield, so you can forgive him a bit. But I was very disappointed by Aston Villa. I thought they'd score and at least cause problems and make things a bit tight. But in the end, Liverpool won comprehensively and the Reds are looking thoroughly impressive. And whilst Aston Villa do have some good attacks and I think they're a very good team to watch, I think it's a huge concern that they've gone to Newcastle now, lost 5-1, and also at Anfield they've lost 3-0. So I think in these big away games, it might be worth skipping them or benching some of these assets and just saving them for the plum fixtures. A saving grace was that I captained Erling Haaland, and whilst I don't gain too much from it, at least I didn't lose a bucket load of points and ranks because he got a hat-trick in the end. He was my highest scoring player, and I was considering going for Mbeumo or Raheem Sterling, and in the end I just went for Erling Haaland because he's facing Fulham and I was quite happy to captain him. And Sterling was the biggest disappointment I think this week, and once again selling Rashford to Sterling was a difference of 9 points with the -4 hit taken into account. So I got 65 overall with the -4 hit also being considered, and my overall rank went from around 300,000 all the way to 1.1 million. So it's still a decent position to be in, but this was the worst game week by far so far this season, and hopefully I don't have too many more of these types of game weeks, and I'm looking to bounce back immediately after the international break in Game Week 5. So let's head over to the Game Week 5 team selection, and I've only got one free transfer available. I have the possibility of rolling, but I'm also very inclined to use that one free transfer and bolster the defence. My goalkeeper situation isn't ideal, but I'm going to keep Onana for the time being and start Turner at home to Burnley. And these two sides actually met a few weeks ago in the Carabao Cup, and Burnley scored a late winner at Nottingham Forest ground, but both teams were rotated and the likes of Awani didn't start the game, and I think he can do really well this week. I mentioned him in the best free hit team video, so be sure to check that out. And with Onana facing Brighton at home, I think United will concede. And looking at Forest versus Burnley, there could be goals in this game, but I would back Nottingham Forest more for a clean sheet, and as a result, I'm just going to go for the clean sheet chances and stick with Turner. But it isn't ideal. I think there are much better goalkeeping options this week, but considering his price point, I don't think Turner's too bad, and there is still the odd possibility of a clean sheet here. So I'm going to start him, see what happens, and if he can get a clean sheet, that would be a massive bonus. After I benched him against Man United, I'm going to reintroduce Saliba into my starting 11 away to Everton. Arsenal have a poor record at Goodison Park. They lost their last year 1-0, and it was the start of their downfall back in February. But I think Saliba has a good chance of a clean sheet on paper, and I'm quite happy to start him this week. It's not maybe the best defender pick in isolation, but on a free hit, I would consider an Arsenal defender, and this is the time, I think, for Arsenal to beat Everton finally at Goodison Park. I'm also going for Ben Chilwell away to Bournemouth. I'm not expecting a clean sheet here, but he's got the attacking potential, and I think Chelsea and Bournemouth could be a high-scoring game, but I'd still go for Chilwell over most defenders this week, but I don't think I'd include him in a best free hit team. And the last defender is Udogie. This could be my one free transfer this week. Baldock to Udogie, that's a huge upgrade, and whilst Udogie plays Arsenal and Liverpool straight after this fixture in Game Week 5, I can bench him there, and there's some good rotation between him, Rico Henry, and my other defenders, so I'm quite happy to buy a Spurs defender like Udogie, bench him in the more difficult games, and start him at home to Sheffield United. I think Udogie, Pedro Porro are some of the best options this week in the defence, so I think he's a good purchase. And whilst I talked about skipping him a few weeks ago, I'm a bit more keen on him now, and this transfer is not set in stone. I have to make that very clear, but at this moment in time, if I had to go for one transfer, I think Udogie in for Baldock is the way to go. Oddly enough, I don't think Bukayo Saka is the best Arsenal midfielder this week, with Martinelli and Odegaard having good records against Everton. But Saka's on penalties. That could be shed of Odegaard, but I still think he is the #1 penalty taker, and he still had a good start to the season in terms of goal contributions. He just needs to get those performances back on track. Even for England, I think he could be doing better, and he's been losing the ball a lot carelessly, but Saka should come good very soon, and Everton away is a very good fixture to bounce back, really. And in Mbeumo is facing Newcastle away. That isn't ideal, but with the way Newcastle defending, I think Brentford could score here, and Mbeumo is one of the main talismanic figures for Brentford, and on the counter-attack he can do something. He's on penalties, so there's a lot to like with Mbeumo, and I'm quite happy to start him even in these difficult fixtures such as Newcastle away. And I'm also going for Raheem Sterling away to Bournemouth, his favourite opponent. And whilst most of his returns have come from his time at Man City, I still think he could do an extremely good job against Bournemouth, regardless of what the result is going to be in the end. I'm also going for Bruno Fernandes at home to Brighton and Hove Albion. He's got a good record against the Seagulls, and it's going to be a difficult game here for Man United, but they should still score, and it should be a very interesting game to watch. Brighton would be maybe the favourites heading into this game, but Man United at Old Trafford, you can't, underestimate them. They've got a very good record at home under Ten Hag, and they're still extremely difficult to beat in that stadium. Even the likes of Man City haven't been able to do so in the last year. And the final midfielder is James Maddison, and whilst Heung-min Son is maybe the flavour of the month and the better option in Game Week 5 specifically, I still think James Maddison is the best Spurs option long term, and he can do extremely well in this fixture and even against the likes of Arsenal and Liverpool coming up. So I'm very happy to have bought James Maddison and Mbeumo. Let's see if Raheem Sterling can come good and become a good addition to my FPL team. The forward line also speaks for itself. Erling Haaland will be starting, as always, away to West Ham United, where he scored a brace last time out on his Premier League debut. And in terms of the captaincy, we'll talk about this very soon. There is a debate to go against Erling Haaland this week, especially if you have Heung-min Son or Salah, but I don't have any of those two options, so it's a bit more difficult for me to find a great alternative to Erling Haaland, but that could still be a consideration as we approach the Saturday deadline. The final player is Ollie Watkins at home to Crystal Palace. Not an easy game, I think will be low scoring, but Aston Villa would be the favourites. They are the better team, and they have a good home record under Unai Emery, so I think Ollie Watkins is still a good option to hold, and I talked about this in the transfer tips video last week, and I'm going to keep him for now. Hopefully he can score some goals finally, but so far it's been a decent start to the season for Ollie Watkins with the assists taken into account, and with the goals soon to come, I think he could become a really good option for the next 5 to 10 game weeks. My bench is looking solid this week with Onana, Estupiñán, Rico Henry, and Osula. My defensive depth is really good with the introduction of Udogie into my team. But if I don't buy him and end up rolling the transfer, it would be Estupiñán starting away versus Man United, and it would be a clash between him and Bruno Fernandes. And all that's left to discuss really is the captaincy. And I'm currently going for Erling Haaland, but I'm seriously considering going for James Maddison, and I think he's the only viable alternative in my starting 11. And if I had Heung-min Son or Mohamed Salah, I would go for those two, with Son being my preference and Salah second. But it's a really close call, I think, between those two, but I would favour them over Erling Haaland. Unfortunately, I don't have them, so my best bet going against him would be James Maddison. Let me know your thoughts down in the comment section below. Who will you be captaining? And from this starting 11, who would you captain? Is there anything you would change? Maybe don't go for a doggy, start a Stupinian and roll the transfer. I would encourage your feedback in the comment section down below. And I'm now going to go to fpl.team and briefly discuss Game Week 6 and how my team would look like with the purchase of a doggy. I would start Onana in goal in Game Week 6, and the back three would be a Stupinian, Chilwell and Rico Henry, all of them with good fixtures, especially Stupinian and Rico Henry. You could argue that Chilwell's fixture isn't great, and my midfield five would be Saka, Maddison, Bruno Fernandes, Sterling and Mbeumo, and a front two of Haaland and Ollie Watkins. Saliba, Udogie and Osula would be on my bench with Turner as well, facing Man City. So I think the starting 11 would be very self-explanatory in Game Week 6, and I think that Udogie transfer allows me to bolster my defense in Game Week 5 and offer good defensive depth in the upcoming game weeks. And I think that could be really crucial, and it will also allow me to maybe be a bit more aggressive in other areas such as the midfield and the forward line in the weeks to come. But it would mean, once again, going with only one free transfer, not having the flexibility of two, and that could be a problem if I want to buy the likes of Heung-min Son in the weeks to come. But I've got 1.1 million left in the bank after buying a doggy, so it wouldn't be too bad, and I have the funds to maybe do Bruno Fernandes to Son, although I wouldn't recommend that in general, and I think Bruno Fernandes will come good, and Man United will eventually get their act together. So let me know your thoughts down in the comment section below, and also all my social media platforms. And thank you very much for watching. If you enjoyed this video or found it useful, then be sure to smash the like button and subscribe if you're new. Let's try to get this video to over 300 likes, and let's keep on pushing towards 20,000 subscribers and beyond. You can follow me on Twitter and Instagram, DylanRCM, and check all the links in the description below for the Patreon, Championships Discord server and the FPL League. If you become a channel member or a patron, you can get exclusive early access to videos, have your channel featured on the front page of my channel, and many more perks at the more advanced tiers. And I'd encourage you to check that out and see what tickles your fancy. And I'd also encourage you to subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. We're around 500 away from the 20,000 milestone, and our aim is to get to 20,000 by Tuesday's deadline stream for UCL Fantasy, and it's only a matter of time. So thank you very much to those of you that have subscribed, liked the videos and commented already. I'll see you very soon for more FPL and UCL Fantasy content, and I hope you enjoy the rest of the build up to Game Week 5.